Hey, so I wanted to do a video today on keyword research. We're sort of looking at how you can get started with keyword research for when you're planning out a site, but also for when you have a site in its infancy and you're looking to grow your keyword target. So it's not going to be a really long video. There's a couple of different approaches we can take. So yeah, let's just get into it. So I think from a keyword research side, it's important to separate your approach in terms of content that you don't have and then content that you do have. So, what are those gap opportunities that you can introduce to the sites, especially when you're planning a site or when you're just starting out and you're doing competition analysis? What do all these various data sources tell you about how you need to start introducing new content? And then also for the content that you do have, is it underserved for the queries that you're targeting? Is it just aged and it hasn't been touched in a while? So what are the opportunities to expand what is already on your site? So especially if you've got a bit of an older site, you're auditing it, you're looking at the keyword research side. This is a really good way to approach it. So then you're covering the keyword development from both angles. So let's just start with the content that we don't have. So whether this is a new site that we've got, so we're looking to introduce categories, subcategories, we're looking at putting an article structure together or a long-term content plan. Where do we start with something like that? So I think the best place to start is in Ahrefs and literally starting with a seed keyword. So something like curtain, if you're going to be like a curtain online retailer, even if you wanted to then go more specific around the types of curtains that you were selling, this is a really nice way of getting all of that data rather than going too specific with a certain keyword and the term matches and the questions. They're going to be much more refined. Whereas if you're starting with that larger keyword first, you can then get all of that data to take a look at what the opportunities are. So for example, here in Ahrefs, we've immediately got term matches, so we could start to see how we could build out categories and subcategories with these types of keywords. And then also what some initial ideas around question-led content would look for. And more importantly, we can start to see who we're going to be competing with. So this really goes well with things like content gap analysis work. So when we're looking at plugging those gaps from a keyword side, we know who the top performers are in the industry. So yeah, if you're literally just starting out, having those initial seed keywords and putting them into something like Ahrefs Keywords Explorer is a really good way of quickly getting that data back and quickly getting started. But then we can take that one step further with a content gap analysis. So we can look at those top performers then that we can see from that seed keyword list, sort their keywords that they're ranking for by our target phrase. So again, if we're using that curtain example, we can just say, show us all of the keywords that contain curtain, and start to look at those opportunities. So we can see, especially here, like estimated traffic, if we were trying to justify new categories to introduce to a site and we know that, oh, we already stock curtain poles, but we don't have a category for it, or we don't have a specific category of shower curtains, or whatever it is. So say you're building out subcategories for, it could be curtain poles, then extendable curtain poles. So you can see how you can really start to build those category and subcategory opportunities. And the good thing is we're already looking at data from a competitor who's done it. So even if these traffic numbers are wrong, we know they are getting traffic from the pages that they've got that we're clearly missing. So that's a really good initial point of optimization, because we're not just necessarily taking what an external tool is saying to us that we need to go after. We're actually doing it against what is clearly already working for competition and what would be relevant for our target audience as well. And then the final one on the content that we don't have, which I always make as a point of analysis when I'm doing an audit for a client, is if you've been running Google Ads for a while, or even just have initial sort of ads data, exporting that data into a spreadsheet alongside your search console data. So this works really well if you are a bit of an older brand, or you have a bit of an older site and you have that historical Google Ads data alongside historical search console data. So then we can start to see, are there any keywords or clusters of keywords that we're bidding on from a PPC side of things that we actually aren't targeting on the site effectively? So this might be that, you're mentioning certain keywords throughout the site, but we don't have anything dedicated for it. And this is something that I see quite a lot. So website owners who just assume because they're bidding on something that's enough. But you turn those ads off and you're just going to disappear for that keyword or that cluster altogether. So you could do something like this where you're looking at exporting your Search Console keywords, their clicks and impressions versus your PPC keywords, how many clicks you're getting there and how much those clicks would cost over time. So what you typically tend to see is a lot of these duplicates, which is exactly what we want to see. All that then means is we're targeting things across Google Ads and we're doing the same organically. But if you're having these gap areas like this one, so let's say keyword 1 is costing us X amount of money, it's getting Y amount of clicks, and it isn't listed as a query in the last 16 months worth of Search Console data. So not only is it costing us money, but it's nowhere to be seen in Search Console. But we can see that it is driving us clicks and is probably converting if it's something that we continue to bid on. So when you're looking at sort of prioritizing content opportunities from a keyword research side of things, this is obviously a really good way of saying, right, this is what we need to prioritize first because it's actively costing us money and we might be able to scale back from a PPC side of things and an ad spend side of things if we can start to target these keywords organically. You don't just have to use Ahrefs either. You can go into SEMrush. So this is just like a random site that I've put in here. So we could imagine this was our competitor and start to sort by the intent. So for example, if we were looking at building out articles on a site and we wanted to look at informational content opportunities, we can quickly see what those opportunities are based on what competitors have already written about. And we can do exactly the same in Ahrefs as well. So as part of that competitor keyword gap analysis, we can say, show us keywords that contain curtain and the word what. So we can start to build out those sort of question-driven content opportunities and really start to prove authority for the site and capture those initial sort of research phase searches. And then when it comes to the content that we do have, again, where do you start with prioritizing what those opportunities are? So I think when it comes to updating content that you already have, Search Console is one of, if not the best tools to use. It's free data and it's internal. It's as close as you're going to get to the truth in regards to impressions, and you can literally see like traffic levels for certain queries that are linked to a page. So what we want to look for here is high impression keywords or queries in Search Console. So they're being shown, but they're not necessarily getting clicks. We could go into an article like this, just like a random link building article on my site, and we can see how some of these queries have really high impressions, no clicks whatsoever. So I can start to vet this piece of content then to say, okay, do I explicitly say what is the best link building service, or do I specifically have a section where I say I'm going to review these link building services? Am I using the right semantics for this piece of content? So especially if you want to start looking at FAQ opportunities for your existing content, yes, you can obviously use SEMrush and Ahrefs, but I think looking at those high impression queries that aren't currently getting any traffic, but they're just consistently being shown, Google obviously thinks they're somewhat related, otherwise they wouldn't be flagging in impressions in the first place. I think that's a really nice way of starting to map out those FAQ opportunities and for when you come in to expand the content, rather than just what a third-party tool might have to tell you, which is ultimately that data is helpful, but it's going to be nowhere near as correct as something like Search Console. So the second one is outdated content. So this doesn't necessarily just mean a piece of content that you published and you just left it. This is much more around whether you have the right type of content based on how the search results are showing for this current period. So for example, the intent of a search might have changed, or recent algorithm updates might have completely flipped the search results on the head for a certain query. So something that was working really well 2 years ago has a complete intent shift, and Google's now favoring something completely different. So we can start to look at this through, again, Ahrefs, so we can look at the position history of a keyword. So, something top level like t-shirts. you can just assume that, okay, it's either going to be the homepage or a category page that's ranking for something quite top level. But we at least just want to see how that's changed over time. So yeah, it's basically a blend of home pages and sort of different category pages. And then you've got these larger authority sites spiking, sort of after the recent helpful content update. But then you can also apply this to informational content as well. So, are articles changing based on how certain things in your industry are changing? So, is it the ones that are the most up to date, or is something that is quite ambiguous now been given a quite definitive yes or no answer? In which case, you need to update your article to sort of provide that yes or no. And obviously, something like that is great for feature snippet targeting as well. But I would definitely say, as part of whether it's commercial or informational keywords, just do this initial position history check just to make sure that you are going into the content planning stage following the keyword research with the right type of content. So does it need to be a category? Does it need to be a subcategory? If it's a guide, do we just need to give a yes or no, or does it need to be a much more informed, evergreen, sort of long form piece of content? So I guess internal link development isn't strictly part of keyword research, but I think it is quite an interesting way to start to look at content opportunities on your site. So for example, here, if I was looking at introducing more keyword research articles to my site, I can obviously see what I've already got, but also what the internal link opportunities could be within the content that I already have. So I've already got this aged content, it's getting traffic. If I'm looking to introduce something else, I can, one, make sure I'm not backtracking over things that I've already done. I can take out elements of certain articles in terms of, okay, I've touched on this in a paragraph, but I could actually probably expand this into its own article and it's going to be unique. And then also, I already understand what the internal link opportunities are when that piece of content is published. So rather than just sort of scrambling around going, oh, I published it, now what? You've already then got that initial plan for the internal link development for any new content that you introduce into your site. And then finally, keyword cannibalization. So this can happen when you have multiple URLs that are targeting the same query. So that could be two of the same categories or categories that are very similar. But in my view, I think it's also really important to view cannibalization as whether the intent is correct for a certain keyword or what a visitor would assume that they're going to see as part of a search. So it could even be that the wrong thing is ranking, and knowing what to target with fresh content or updating something that you already have. So for example, here with the Sunspell site, you got this keyword, linen polo shirt men's, and we've got a top level men's linen collections page that is ranking position 6. And then you've got this products one that is position 10. Neither, though, I would say really sort of fulfill that linen polo shirt specific sort of search intent. And when we do a site search on their site, you can see they've got like men's linen shirts, men's luxury polo shirts, and you've got linen at the product level, but nothing that is specific to men's linen polo shirts as a dedicated category. So this is a really nice way of starting to look for those super specific opportunities, especially at the subcategory level, where, you know, if you have enough stock to put within that subcategory and you can fully justify it with, well, it's something that people are searching for, we already rank for it, we can cross-reference this with Search Console data as well. So like I say, this is a good first start, but you want to sort of further justify it with the Search Console data. But yeah, I suppose cannibalization itself doesn't necessarily just have to be around two URLs that compete in and having to sort of amalgamate one into the other. It could just also be whether you have URLs that compete in, but neither quite hit that sort of level of search intent or what a user would expect to see. So you can start to introduce further content opportunities based on that. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, just sort of whistle-stop tour on how you can start to approach keyword research. If you like this sort of stuff, I've got my All About SEO newsletter, so you can find more of these sorts of ramblings through there. So I'll put a link in the description to the newsletter. It'd be great to see you over there, and I'll catch you in the next video.